and salutations to our fine podcast audience. Welcome to Three Peas in a Pod, episode 186.
We made it.
And Ed's still...
I'm making my head dance.
He's making his head down to the non-existent music that we're not hearing, but you are. But you're hearing, but
Is
Ed
it
doesn't
still
like.
playing now?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it'll
it just
play.
rolls right on in.
Keeps rolling through.
The whole episode we have that
No.
underneath?
No. It's an intro.
Okay.
Ed's all upset
no.
because he doesn't like it.
Yeah.
This will be interesting to our audience. Ed has never watched a TV show in his entire life. He didn't know that sometimes while people are speaking, there's still music
Oh,
playing.
no, I know that
underneath.
part. I thought you underscored the episode. That'd be cool if we had orchestration. Somebody says it goes dun, dun, dun,
It would not be good because a lot of people listen to these things at 1.5, 2 times speed.
That'd be
I
me.
do too. I'm just saying. And if you've ever tried to listen to music at that speed, it is irritating.
It's really irritating.
Yes.
Although the podcast that I do listen to at 1.5, when I do listen and I actually do watch it at its normal speed, it sounds like it's dragging.
Yeah,
it sounds very
In fact,
slow.
there's an intro that I like. It has sort of it has my kind of rock feel to it.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way the guitars sound. And then I listen to it at normal speed and I go, that's terrible.
Need a little tempo.
Yeah, they need a little tempo to
That's
that.
what it needed. So you figured it out, Ed. All right, so this week, this is not a grab bag episode like it was last week. Last week, we had a couple insider questions. We talked about aliens. It was just all over the place. Just grab bag. It was crazy. Crazy, I tell you.
It was wild.
Wow. This week, we're going to get more serious.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, Ed. Did you see Ed's change
my
right
face.
there? His facial expression
That was all
changed.
the acting
We're
I
ready.
can do.
His
my total
tone-
acting repertoire.
Your tone changed. I'm so proud of the solemnity of your countenance.
and your vocabulary.
I'm telling you, I have one.
I know.
I try not to use it, but this one hopefully we'll say.
What do you use your vocabulary?
You're talking right now. What if you're
really
using?
tough to
If you're
have
not
a
using your
conversation.
vocabulary, Jason.
I try to use the
I just-
understandable version.
Jason normally communicates through scat.
We had to stop one of our vocalists who wanted
Let's
to scat.
don't go there.
Okay.
Let's don't go there.
Yes.
We've been there. We ain't going back.
No, this happened yesterday.
Oh yeah, someone tried
Jason.
to scat yesterday.
Somebody tried to scat yesterday.
I don't know. They tried to. They suggested.
They threatened it, and we said no.
Oh, I missed that, and I'm glad that I missed that. Okay, here's the question, and this ties into some things that I think we have talked about in the past, and this viewer listener wants us to follow up on it. Here it is. I've heard you say that what God wants is trust.
Yes.
We have said that. So here's the question: why so many commands then? Where does obedience fit into trust?
Obedience is the response to trust. If I trust somebody, and they are certainly in a position of authority in my life, then when they command me to do something, or if they request for me to do something, or instruct me to do something, obedience is the response. Disobedience would be an act of distrust of me saying, I think my way's better. Which by that nature is saying, I don't trust you know what's best.
Okay.
And then I would say as well, I think I do think that's right. That's primarily what I was going to say. But I was thinking as you were talking about it, I think spiritually there are instances where if you just start with obedience, and because I've often said to people, you may not yet trust Jesus, but you can try this stuff.
Okay.
And it can lead to trust because there are things Jesus tells us to do, and they just work.
Yeah.
That's true.
They just work. There is a blessing tied to them, and when you align yourself with what He is telling us is right about the world, you don't necessarily have to even buy that as true. But if you are willing to do it and obey Him.
So what you're saying is obedience can just start without trust. It could just be a thing
Sure.
of, and I've heard you say this before, I learned that the way I was doing life wasn't working.
Right.
And so I was ready to try something else.
That's exactly
so
right.
I decided that I would obey Jesus.
That's right.
And lo and behold, my obedience then led me to realize he was trustworthy.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of people, all the 12 steps are spiritual principles that come right from the scripture. They're all clearly, they're right from the Bible, and particularly the New Testament.
Yeah.
And most people who come into a program like that, they just are at the end of themselves. If it's going to work, they have gotten to the end of themselves, which means I don't trust me anymore.
Okay.
I have lost trust in me. And so I decide I can't, but I'm going to trust that he can. And so I'm going to let him, which means I'm going to do what he says. And I'm going to trust myself to a sponsor. And I'm just going to do what they say. And what you find is as you do it, you begin to develop trust, one in your sponsor, then in the higher power or Jesus. And it leads to that because they are spiritual principles that just work.
Okay.
They just work.
And
that's true in a lot of the scripture things. I don't want to
Yeah.
just make limited to the 12 steps.
exactly. I wondered as I was reading the question if the person who asked this had this assumption, because it sounds like I'm just trying to understand what you're getting at, whoever sent us this question, that, if God just wants me to trust him, then therefore he shouldn't give me so many rules.
Well, I think because we think trust means belief. That
Well, but I also think go ahead. Finish what you were saying.
That's what I mean. I think when most people hear, if I say, "Do you trust me?" and they go, "Yeah," well, I go, "Well, then do what I say." Well,
Yeah.
Because I was going to say, I think it ultimately comes back to, and I think this whole question does. It is ultimately a matter of authority and who has authority, and we have really, and I would say in kind of our stream, not for all Christians, because I know there are a lot of Christians that the authority thing has been misused with.
Sure.
But in our stream of Christianity, authority really has kind of, especially in evangelical Christianity, the authority gets watered down sometimes, even to the place of us saying things like, which was really big when I was younger and then into the teenage years, I know was, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And then that eventually leads to every conference I was at, people like, prayer, you just talk to God like you talk to a buddy. So call him dude if you want to call him dude, and you can say, and I'm not saying God's offended by these things, but the thing I often think is it does misplace, you're not talking to a peer. Talking to a friend is not the same thing as talking to a parent. I've had this conversation with my children because I was thinking, the person who when I tell them, hey, if you trust me, you do what I say, the person who has the biggest problem with that are my kids. Because they go, why you got so many rules? If all you want me to trust you. Well, the problem is I can't trust you right now. And I've had to tell them that because when I let you just go off and do what you want, you make decisions that are not in your best interest. You have to be trained in order to be trustworthy. That is a part of life. That part of my commands are to train you to be the kind of person who can be trustworthy. Well, the problem is when I'm 30, 33, or when I'm 55, I ain't no kid. And I don't need nobody to tell me how to do things. Yeah, that's fine when it's your 5-year-old and you want me to. You want me to train my 5-year-old because when my 5-year-old's in the restaurant with you and running around, you're thinking, why didn't he? And when you come to me and go, why don't you control that 5-year-old? I go, well, I trust them to make the right decision. They're clearly not making the right decision, and you know this. Well, the rest of us think, well, I'm an adult. I don't need no one to train me.
I also wondered as I was to sort of bounce off what you just said, Nathan, is I would also ask the question back to a person who would ask this question is, well, what are you trusting God for?
Sure.
Because if all you trust God for is to, take care of your loved ones and to forgive your sins and to give you a place to go when you die, then I would say, well, okay, if that's it, then your obedience is probably pretty irrelevant at that point.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if I trust God, period, and it's not qualified and there's not, caveats to that, he's just and we say it around here like this, he's right about everything. I believe he's right about everything. Well, then obedience for me is baked into everything at that point. I think obedience is the thing.
So let me go back to the point I was making to illustrate this, because this is a really good point you're making. If the point of my children obeying my commands is because they're afraid I'm going to kick them out of the house, well, if you don't trust me, if I keep breaking the rules, what you going to do? Stop feeding me, kick me out of the house? Well, no, because I said this is what I'm going to do. If the issue though is, and this has happened with one of my oldest daughter has lots of privileges that my younger ones don't, and one of them said the other day, well, when I'm 11, I'm going to get to do that, and I said to them, I just looked at them, I said, I'm not so sure that's going to happen.
Yeah.
And they said, why? And I said, she doesn't get that because she's 11. She gets that because I trust her. Because when I leave her alone or when I'm not around, she acts the way that she would act if she was with me. But when I said to this kid, I said, but I keep hearing from other people that when you're not with me, you act as if daddy's not around, so I'm going to do whatever I want to do. And I said, that breaks trust. Yeah. So are there things you're missing out on because I can't trust you? Yes, that's part of it. And I think we miss this sometimes with God. And that's what I mean by authority. A lot of us think God's sole authority in life is who goes to heaven and who goes to hell. Yeah. And so to go back to your point.
And who somehow takes care of my family in this mystical way that I determine what it means to take care of them, not God.
Oh, yeah.
Sure. And that it basically is, I trust God to do what I want him to do. I was sitting here, I'm still not sure I'm going to say all this right, so when I get off track, y'all just interrupt and make it right. There is a lot, I think, in the way that I was taught Christianity growing up, and I probably have even taught this enough that people would see it, and a lot in our world that is little more than paganism and superstition, and that people believe, I trust in Jesus, and what they mean is, if you gave me a test that would somehow determine whether I go to heaven or hell, or if somebody I care about gets sick, that I could pray, and that would make me somehow feel better, that I had done all that I could do for this person that was sick, because I'm not a doctor, and now I'm gonna pray, and I trust God. But there is no indication anywhere else in my life that God and I have anything going on. It's just these, and it sounds so, in my head it's very little different. I have a friend who always, I don't think he believes this stuff, but he'll regularly do things. He'll say something, go knock on wood, and I go, why? Yeah. Why are you knocking on wood? Is there a termite you're killing? I mean,
is there power?
Do you really believe? And he go, I don't believe. It's just something that people say. And I go, yeah, a lot of prayers are that way. Yeah. A lot of prayers are, it's knocking on wood, it's throwing salt over your shoulder, it's not walking under a ladder, it's being afraid of the 13th or any of that stuff. Yeah. I don't, but trust is apparent. Yeah. I mean, it's just apparent. Well, and like you said, you can see in your one daughter that she can be trusted.
Yes, but that comes through a relational, and I've had to say this to them before because we were talking about something. Oh, I overheard them speaking to an adult, and they weren't even being disrespectful, but they kind of came back a little flippantly with the adult, and I just pulled them aside afterwards and goes, you don't get to talk that way to a grown-up. And that dichotomy to them was very hard to understand. And it's one of those things that is hard to explicitly explain. If I had to explain to you in explicit terms why you need to show a certain level of honor to an older person, it's not that they're more valuable. It doesn't mean that for some reason it's okay to dishonor someone who's younger. But there is this understanding that you are a child and this person adult. And part of the relational dynamic between the two of you is you do submit. You do look and go, I don't get to say whatever I want to this person and just expect them to flippantly have to deal with it. And once again, most adults appreciate that when they see a child who is respectful like that, as opposed to ones who don't. And we look and we go, oh, well, don't they have so much spirit? But we look and we go, there is something to that. Well, God's inviting us into that kind of a relationship, and we miss that. Doesn't mean he doesn't love us. And it doesn't mean we can't say what's on our heart to God. There is a difference, though, between me and God. And I think we miss this at times. He does have an authority in my life to tell me what to do and how to do it. And there is, I'm trying to say this in the right way, there is a relational dynamic that exists between that kind of a thing, that when you talk about prayer and the way people talk about it, and I hear a lot of people say this to me, and they say, prayer is a powerful thing. And I said, it is, but when I think in the Bible at the times where it says prayer is powerful, the place I've seen it most often is James says the prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective. And the way we've turned that is any prayer you utter at any time. Jesus says at one point, if you ask for anything in my name, meaning in my character, with my likeness, it will be given to you, or it'll be done for you. There is no blanket understanding that because God is a good and loving Father, if you ask for it, he just turns everything over to you. More than if I would say to my 9-year-old right now, though I can't trust you alone, I'm going to leave you at home for 2 days by yourself because you want to. That's what a good and loving Father will do. There is something in this relational dynamic, and it's not me earning anything with God. It's not saying if you work really hard. It's not the paganism thing you're talking about of, if I work hard and I say the right words, God will give me what I want. It is a relational dynamic of a person who God looks at and sees as trustworthy and effective, and someone that he can trust, or righteous in this term. There is a difference in that dynamic than just a person who goes, I believe God's going to save me from hell, and occasionally I'm going to throw things out to God.
Mm-hmm. And for me, back to the rule part of the question, I would say if I become someone who is like you just described, I fully trust God, which is a goal. Mm-hmm. I want to be someone who fully trusts in God. Then I think I would become less bothered by the fact that he has rules for my life. And I find this not just in other people. I see it in myself too. I get real upset. Well, shouldn't have to have all these rules. We should be, But then Paul talks about how there's freedom when we live underneath the law of Christ. Mm-hmm. So there's some kind of balance in there somewhere.
I think it's that relational dynamic.
And I agree. That's where I was headed. As my trust in him grows, because my relationship in him grows.
I would say this as well. I think the freedom, and I'm not sure I'm sitting here thinking about, there comes a point, why does God want me to trust him? Because ultimately he knows when I can come to the place that, which a lot of people say of, God said it, I believe it. Mm-hmm. When I can get to the place that really I trust God's character enough to know there is nothing he will ask me to do, or any place that he'll ask me to be, that is not for my benefit, well then it doesn't really matter that the rule doesn't make sense to me, or the circumstance that I'm in causes me ultimately to go, ooh, that feels uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. God wants me to trust him because he knows for sure that we live in a broken world with broken situations, and in every life there are going to be circumstances that are going to happen to his children that ultimately he wants us to get to place. There can't be a rule for everything.
That's right.
So the rules are to help me learn to trust him, so that when I'm in a situation where there can't be a rule for everything, I just trust him. Mm-hmm. I just trust my Father is good. I'm in this situation. He is with me. His Spirit will guide me. I can make it through this no matter what the circumstance is, and I can be okay, and he can receive glory from this moment. Mm. But and the freedom that comes from that is, I don't have to be anxious.
That's right.
Well, in any situation, that's the freedom found. That's the freedom found in the law. The law is a schoolmaster, Paul also says, to get me to this other place.
So here's a good example of what you're talking about. It's just, I'm now on the train of thought with my kids. But so my oldest daughter, she'll stay at home when we go to the gym in the morning, and I leave her, hey, here's some things, that's part of our agreement is if you stay home, there are going to be some chores I need you to do around the house while we're gone. So she often makes food for like lunch. She'll prep things for lunch. So I told her I'd left her a recipe, an instruction, a command list of how to make these carrots put them in the crock pot, do this. And one of the things was we have minced garlic in a jar. You got to open it. Now she has a way to text us, like through Facebook Messenger app. She can text my wife while we're at the gym. Well, she could not get the garlic open. She couldn't get the jar open. And when I got home that morning, she said, Daddy, I couldn't get the jar open. And I started freaking out. She's a perfectionist. She wants to do it. She goes, I started freaking out. And I thought, oh man, I can't do what Daddy asked me to do. I'm going to mess this up. You know, circumstances have changed. And she goes, and then I thought, what would Daddy do? And she goes, he would go to Google and look up how to open it. So she Googled on her phone ways to open a jar when it's stuck. She figured out how to open it. She did a bunch of different things, you know, running under hot water, all the different things you do, found a way to open it to do what I wanted. Now, I had not told her, I did not write down a command that said, if jar can't be opened, do this. But she was a thoughtful person who said, I know the command he did leave me. This is a slightly different situation than the exact command. What could I do to honor what he asked me to do in his likeness, in his way? And this is what I think God calls us to do. We said on the last episode, with AI, with ChatGPT, with all of these different things that the Bible doesn't cover, right? Is I'm supposed to enter those spaces, right? As a person who goes, I know how God has taught me to honor people. Right? And that's really the command, honor people.
Yep.
The command isn't say these words, don't say these words. You know, act this way, don't act. It's honor people. And I, as a thoughtful Christian living in the 21st century who knows the likeness of my Savior, who has been walking daily with him, I can be formed into the kind of person who could respond in a situation like Jesus would, though he did not clearly write the recipe for me how to do it.
Yep. Yep. I think one of the issues, too, that I was thinking of on this issue is that I think a lot of Christians, we wind up, we know the right thing. We want to trust God. We want to do things his way. And we say all the right stuff. We say all the right stuff around here. But then there comes that point where I run up against a rule, a law, or something.
In the Bible.
In the Bible.
Okay.
Something I know God has called me to do. And I don't like that one. And I think there's this thing in us. I'm not imposing on the question asker, but I would say there's this thing in me that when I hit one of those, there's a test of my trust.
Yes.
And I have to decide, okay, is there, because that's when I start pushing back and go, why is there so many rules? Why can't we just
That's
back?
right.
Why we gotta be so harsh? Especially, and I'll tell you this, the people that I know and have seen that have run up against a rule that is directly opposed to their lifestyle, to what they would call their orientation in life, to what they feel in themselves, and they have said, okay, I don't want that to be true, I don't like that,
Yeah.
but you're God,
Yep.
I trust you, okay.
Right.
I think those are people who have way more trust in God than most Christians do.
I agree with that.
And I want to say that because I don't want you to think that, you know, every time you run up against, one of these things that it's going to be, oh, well, God didn't mean, or you can figure it out, or, you know, if you just trust him and all these other things, that don't matter. There comes a point where
They all matter.
they all do matter, and I'm not saying we're all getting it all right all the time.
No, we're not.
It's part of the discipleship journey. In fact, I think that is the discipleship
I do
journey.
too.
It is me running up against the stuff that I have to decide, how much do I really trust my Heavenly Father
That's right.
to do what he said. And back to your illustration, if I can't figure out how to do what he said,
Yeah.
knowing who he is, I will do what he said however I can possibly do it in the Spirit of Jesus.
That's right.
But there's a tension there. And if there's not a tension there, you probably haven't truly, you're probably truly not dealing with God.
Right.
That's right.
You're massaging it somehow. That's the thing that I think gets really, really tough sometimes.
Well, I think the thing that most of us are trying to look for most of the time is, you know, I want to find out solutions to my current problems. I've got a lot of problems.
Yep.
And what God has left us with in the scriptures is this tool or this library, maybe that's a better way to say it, of lots of different things. Some are commands, some are stories, right? All these different things is what the Bible is, right? But its goal is to be used within the community of God, right? To make us people who can be trustworthy and effective and responsive to God and these kind of things. And so it really is a long journey, as you've said. And I would just encourage anyone who listens, trust is what God wants. Ultimately what God wants is he wants this loving relationship, this partnership between us and him, but that it's really clear Jesus is still king. Like the partnership is not that somehow me and Jesus get on equal standing. The partnership is that God listens to me like I was talking about, like I do. I feel like good parents do with their kids. They listen to their kids and they respond to their kids and they go, oh wow, that's a good idea. I hadn't thought, my wife, this staycation, she was decorating some stuff with the house, and because we've got a preteen, I thought was just great on her. She said she loves to decorate. I'm going to let her be a part of that process, right? Normally, I would just it's my house. I can make all the decisions, but she goes, what do you think about this? And there were even some things that my daughter came with. I know my wife, it is not her style, but her thought was, she goes, for the sake of this relationship, for the sake of what we're doing together, this doesn't go against it. She didn't bring anything vulgar into her house.
That's right.
It's still within the character of who we are as people. And she goes, I'm going to bend a little bit towards her. And I do think our Father does that.
Absolutely.
When people ask, why even pray if God doesn't change anything? I think there are times God listens and he goes, that's an interesting idea, and I'm going to bend a little bit your way. I don't think he clearly will never do anything that is against his character or his nature, but there are times that God moves, and I think that's what James means when he says the prayer of a righteous person, a person who is already living within God's character. God looks and goes, I can trust that guy. That guy gets it. He is trying. He is moving towards it. I don't think righteous person means, as Jason's already said, a person who knocks it out of the park every day. It's the person that God looks at the heart and goes, this is a person who's trying, man. They want to trust me. They are moving this way. And obviously God is unpredictable. So there are times he just opens up the floodgates on people who don't even deserve it and aren't even trying.
Yep.
But we want to be the righteous people who are trying to do what God calls us to do.
So there you go. Send us more.
That was a really good.
That was a great question.
That was a
Thank
really
you
good
for that. And I enjoyed having that conversation.
Me too.
Because that sometimes I figure things out while we talk.
Yeah,
It does help to talk.
It's very helpful.
Yeah, it helps us. So, you're helping us as much as we're helping. I hope.
I think so.
Yeah, I hope we're helping you get clear on things, but we're just trying to get clear on some things
Some of
too.
y'all fix the music at the beginning would be a big help to them.
He ain't letting it go, is he?
He's grumpy.
I'm telling
He's
you.
grumpy.
I'm saying. I don't think the music's going to change.
I also don't think.
I will
I
just
think
tell
you
you.
have
I'll
to.
tell you at this point, the more we talk about it, the less likely it's going to change.
I also feel that, so I'm gonna not mention it again.
Here's what I'm
This
going to say.
episode.
Okay, I was about to say. Here's what I think. There's two possible things. One, he won't remember that he said not that he wasn't going to
And
mention it.
I'll go,
No.
man, I love that song.
That's okay. That's a third possibility. Second is he'll keep talking about it. Third is he won't remember we have a theme song and we won't ever talk about it
That
again.
may be true.
All of those are highly possible. So
Come back next week
to find out.
and you'll find out.
That's right.
See you then.